Greetings friends, Jared here with another review from Fanboys Forever, and today we're going to be having a look at the brand new Boss Fight Studios Hero H.A.C.K.S Zorro, the Don Diego de la Vega version. And I am so excited about this figure. Why? Because I have been a lifelong fan of Zorro, and every incarnation that the character has appeared in my entire life, I have absolutely been obsessed with Zorro.
The masked avenger of early California, Zorro!
This bold renegade carves a Z with his blade, a Z that stands for Zorro. Zorro, the fox so cunning and free. Zorro, who makes the sign of the Z.
So let's go ahead and let's have a quick look at the figure's packaging. Here we have Don Diego in the packaging. We can see the figure and the head up here with the sword, and there's even a whip back there and the hat. We have this beautiful artwork that they had commissioned, and that's just for this release. Here we have some really cool artwork. I really love the shape of this packaging. I would call it a widescreen package, if you get what I mean. I love how we have this awesome product shot. I remember when they revealed this, actually, on their Facebook. If you've not checked out their social media accounts, that's a really great place to start. Just so you know, they don't sponsor this review. I just pre-ordered this. But still, I'm just saying that I love keeping up with those guys. We also have a really cool bio over here, and I really like this. And I definitely suggest that you read through it, pause the video, or whatever you want to do, because it's fantastic. Boss Fight Studios makes their packaging completely collector friendly. You're just able to kind of flex those open to just pull the card out with very minimal damage to the card itself. And I really love this because I can keep this packaging, and it's just like the day I bought it. Now, Hero H.A.C.K.S is kind of an offshoot of the Vitruvian H.A.C.K.S line that they do, and that's a non-licensed line. That's just original concepts from them, and those look absolutely fantastic and something I would really like to get into. And here he is, that old fox, Zorro. It's plain to see that this is your quintessential classic Zorro. First off, we have Zorro's face sculpt, which I think is very classic looking. It certainly reminds me of all of the classic incarnations of the character in film and television, dating back all the way to the Mark of Zorro, the Disney series with Guy Williams. You name it, I think that this will put you in the mind of that particular version. I think that, I guess it would need certain specific details to be, say, the Antonio Banderas or Anthony Hopkins versions from Mask of Zorro, but they did say in their most recent live stream on Facebook that indeed, at least Antonio Banderas Zorro will be in Wave 2 with Elena. This is like the novel version of Zorro, Johnston McCulley's original story from 100 years ago. And as the packaging notes back here, that we are looking at a 100th anniversary of Zorro, which is really hard to believe. He predates Batman, of course, and predates many of the other heroes that would take influence from him. I love the hat. I think it's really nice. And unlike a lot of 3 3/4 hats, I think that this hat is actually proportional to the 3 3/4 figure. It's quite adjustable, so you can kind of toy with it. It is totally removable, so under it you can see that Zorro is just wearing his bandana. So I love that. Moving on down, we can see that Zorro has the lace-up shirt, as he does in many incarnations. We also have a cape that is fastened on with a rope between the two clasps there. Moving on down, he does have the sash here, kind of the belt that's tied. I like that. He has very standard legs, and of course, Zorro is wearing some boots, and if you look closely, I hope this is picking it up, you can actually see that leather texture on the boots. So I think that's really cool that they actually got the texture in there. I think that all of this looks fantastic. You can see that if you look closely on the side there, Zorro does have a scabbard right there, so you can store the sword if you would like. We can see that Zorro's cape is back here. It's all ruffly, and I really like the sculpt of it. You can actually see there's a suggestion of a collar almost going around the cape. So I think that those are all really nice little details. And then we also get an alternate head with the figure. This is the Don Diego de la Vega head. Really like this. I think it turned out really nicely. I think it does remind me of quite a few of the actors. It's almost like if you took Antonio Banderas and Guy Williams and kind of crammed them together, you would sort of get something that looked like this.
I got to know.
So let's see how easy the head is to just switch out. I haven't tried it yet. So there we go. That was actually pretty simple. You can actually see that I wasn't expecting this. The dumbbell actually stays in the head. So that stays in there. And you can see that Don Diego has one himself. And maybe that's a better method. I'm just used to G.I. Joe's always keeping it in the neck peg and you having to switch the heads out. Yeah, maybe that is a better method because that seemed to go in very nicely. Look at that. Really great. I think that it looks awesome on the figure's body itself, which actually begs the question, if we just pop this guy off, can the cape be removed? It appears that the cape pegs into the back as well. Yep, sure enough, as long as I was just a little careful with it, this just came right out. So for one, we can just go with Don Diego's head right here. That looks great. You can almost have kind of a civilian Don Diego in a way. I suppose that hopefully people wouldn't notice that he's just dressed as Zorro without a cape and mask and hat, but who knows. I really like this, though. I think this is a good look and reminds me of the older Zorro films where he frequently wasn't wearing a cape. Speaking of that look, head goes in very nicely. And oh yeah, that looks great. While the cape is off, this might be a good time to talk about articulation. So the head doesn't have any hinge on the neck, but it has one of the most terrific dual kind of ball joints I've ever seen, where it's just a dumbbell where the head is on one and the neck is on one. Look at all that range, way up, way down. I mean, you can really bury the head down there. Kind of side to side a little bit, like an inquisitive look. I mean, I wish that every 3 3/4 figure I own had that kind of articulation, but they just don't. It's such a shame that a smaller company like Boss Fight is able to figure that out and some of the big boys can't. Here we have a hinge right here at the shoulder. It's a very flexible hinge, so much so you can get way up, way over 90. And so that leads to you being able to get some incredible fencing poses like that. Also, we can rotate the shoulder all the way around if you so wish. Of course, you can take the elbow and rotate it all the way around if you wish. We do have a single joint right here at the elbow, and it's fairly effective. Of course, it would have been nice to have gotten a double joint, especially with a character that is a swashbuckler and one that will be in a sword fight, per se. But I really do think it's effective, and it does what it needs to do. But of course, you know, you would love to see a double joint on something like that. Next up, we do have a wrist joint where it can rotate. It can also hinge down and hinge up. So there we go. Just like that, the hinge is good enough to where you can bring the sword out almost completely straight with the arm. As a matter of fact, you straighten up the arm that way, and I mean, you've got it. So I'm really surprised by the hinge and the wrist. At first, I did not think it was that good. And then we can bring it up, way up. And the one thing, we'll talk more about this, is you have to watch out for these protrusions here at the top of the sword, and we will get into why you need to watch out for that. But you can bring it way up, and especially combined with the elbow articulation, he can practically knight himself there. So I think that looks really good. Next up, we do have a ball-jointed torso. So you can go this far over, so Zorro's having back problems. You can go way back, so Zorro can dodge enemy attacks. And you can rotate it all the way around if you wish. And it can even go side to side a little bit. So you can get some crazy stuff. So if you really want, Zorro can really, be into it in a swashbuckling sword fight like this. And before you know it, you've got something really special. All right, next up, Zorro does not have a waist joint because why would he? Because the torso already rotates, so there's really no reason. I always prefer this kind of joint over this, and I really like how the torso joint is very natural. There's a very smooth kind of line. It's not so mechanical looking, which I think is a problem for a lot of action figure makers. Moving on down to the legs, we can have a leg that goes out that far, which is terrific. And he can do the splits about that much. So that's probably as much as Zorro would be splitting anyway, I would think. So I think that's plenty. There is no rotation up here, but you can flex it around on the ball joint. So there's no cut or anything. No cut down here at the boot, no cut at the knee. But he does get double joints here, which is, of course, terrific. You can see that we get a ball joint down here and a hinge, which means that we should be able to get some pivot action as well. So if you want to, you can use the pivots down here. So if you want to, using those pivots, you can get some pretty deep stances. Yeah, and Zorro can remain pretty well flat-footed. So you can get something a lot like that. And with the hat on, that looks terrific. Really like that look as well without the cape. I do know that the Hero and Steed box set, which I also have, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that review as well, which will be up very soon. I know that he does come with a soft goods cape, so I know that that's an option as well, but you have to buy that other set to get it. And here's Zorro with his cape back on. I'm really glad that there's a peg back there that connects it to the back, because if there wasn't, this cape would just kind of flop backwards and be against his neck. You've all seen that on figures that have a plastic cape where it just kind of it looks awkward. And I'm glad that there's a peg back there where it goes into the back. And that way, it just keeps it from flopping around. And especially when you're posing the figure different ways, the cape is there to stay. Let's talk about this stand. This is another great option for getting Zorro to stand the way you want him to, even though, like I said, the articulation is good enough to where you don't feel like you have to crutch on this too much. It says, highly articulated character kit system. Really like that. Of course, with the Vitruvian hacks and these, all the parts are, I believe, interchangeable. You can see that it's boss fight on the back. I do like that this is a sandy color, because I do think that that's the kind of environment Zorro would be in. It would be more like sandstone and things in old California. But there is one little issue that I have. These pegs are very, very, very large on this stand. And I never really did get this foot to go into one of those pegs too well, so I just kind of left it out. I didn't want to bust the foot or anything like that. I'm sure that I could probably heat it up and get it on there just fine. But it is something that Boss Fight may want to look at, is possibly either increasing the size of the peg holes on the feet or maybe slimming these down a little. Might make it a little more workable. And here's Zorro utilizing the stand. I think it looks really good. And like I said, I think that color looks really nice. Combine this with a little bit of background scenery. Maybe Zorro is out in the mountains or something like that. Zorro does come with two alternative hands. These are just open palm hands. And I think these are cool. I suppose they would be kind of neat for Zorro to just have his hands kind of in a relaxed position. They do have a hinge that goes the opposite way than the others. And just very quickly, we'll show you one of those alternate hands. These come out fairly easily once you do it a few times, but it seems like after a couple of times of doing this, it's getting better. I guess the little ribs are kind of wearing down on the pegs. I think this is pretty cool, especially if you have Zorro like grabbing at something maybe, or as he's fighting, he kind of has a hand out to balance himself. Maybe he's got the whip like this. Oh yeah, that's actually terrific, because you kind of see him do this before he's going to whip onto like a ledge or something like that. Yeah, I actually think that that looks really nice. See, I'm already thinking of photo possibilities here. Oh yeah. Yeah, terrific. I love the looks of that. I really like the whip that Zorro comes with. I feel like people sometimes forget Zorro's whip and focus more on his swordsmanship, and I really think that's a shame, because I think that's one of his most defining characteristics. I'm really glad that the Mask of Zorro didn't forget about the whip. That was something I always appreciated, even as a kid. So you can see that there's all sorts of great braided detail in what looks like a very leather whip. Now, here's the sword. And I think that the design is terrific. I especially like that it almost sort of has the curvature of a Z right there as it goes through. You can see that it kind of, see that, how it makes the sign of the Z just a little bit. I like it. It's very pointy, so that's good. Sometimes, you know, they skimp on pointiness on these things. I think it looks terrific. And I know that you can't tell, but mine actually broke. Yeah. So sometimes when you're dealing with 3 3/4, you fly a little close to the sun with your detail. These little protrusions here on the sides are so small and so tiny. I mean, you can see my thumbnail here, and it's unbelievable how small these things are. And I think that they look really cool, but this one came right off, right out of the box. That's kind of a shame that it came right off, but, you know, from the other side, it's you can sort of see it, but it's really hard to tell. Just a dot of glue fixed it. I don't think that I did anything to it to break it either. I think that it was just hanging on by a thread as soon as I got it out. So it's probably some kind of little production problem, maybe some kind of little error. I actually have a pretty good confidence that I would say that Boss Fight will probably set me up with a new one if I ask about it. So, and many other 3 3/4 lines that I collect have some form of stud joints. So it was great to get this figure from a smaller company that had nothing like that whatsoever. All the joints worked really, really well. And honestly, I would rather have that any day than maybe a small piece coming off the sword that I could easily fix. And we'll just take Zorro's sword. We'll just thread it through. And ta-da, there's Zorro with the sword and the scabbard. I actually think that that looks really cool. I like how it crosses back behind the legs to where even when he doesn't have the sword out, that it's obvious that he has it with him. So I really do think that this is a cool look for Zorro just to have it to the side. And I believe that it is scale comparison time. So first things first, let's go for the obvious scale comparison. We're going to take his good friend Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. You know, ironically, I would say that there is a good chance that some of the guys who worked on Zorro also helped create the Snake Eyes figure because a lot of those guys came from Hasbro and were responsible for a lot of their 3 3/4 lines. Love Steel Brigade Delta here. Just put them side by side with Zorro. I think that they look very natural, all these G.I. Joe figures right beside of Zorro. Here's honorary G.I. Joe, Dr. Alan Grant from Jurassic Park. These guys are really small to be 3 3/4. I know that they're probably more true 3 3/4, and these guys are actually more like 4 inches. So he doesn't go so well with Jurassic Park, which is kind of a shame considering that Dr. Malcolm pretty much based his whole wardrobe on Zorro. Maybe we should give the cape to Malcolm here. You know what's really funny? Let's just see. I can't help myself.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
But here's Ryu here, or Ryu, or Dio, depending on how you want to pronounce it. That's a whole can of worms. But these guys are in terrific scale. And you'd be a fool to forget that women love Zorro. To prove that, here we have Dr. Ellie Sattler and Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow. See, I don't have them on stands, but you kind of get the idea. Natasha here is in great scale. Dr. Sattler, not so much. And here's Zorro, all posed up, ready for the end of the review. And so the question becomes, should you pick this guy up? I do think that Boss Fight will be listing these on their store. I believe that they said January the 8th, maybe. And whatever wasn't bought up through pre-orders, they will be opening those orders back up for anybody who wanted this guy to get one last chance at him. And I have to say that if you do get the opportunity, I definitely would. I definitely would. It's a very, very good quality 3 3/4 scale figure. I'll be honest, I really didn't know what to expect from Boss Fight. I knew that everybody said some really nice things about them. I knew they were a very reputable company. But now seeing is believing, and I think that it's terrific what they pulled off here. This is just great. I absolutely love this. As a matter of fact, I think that this could have been in a larger scale, the exact same detail, no change. And I would have been just as pleased with the details here. I think, you know, it could have been 6 or 7 inches, and I think I would have said, yeah, that's perfect. But because it's in 3 3/4, which is a pet favorite scale of mine, and there's not enough happening in that scale these days, and it's a shame, I think it's even more impressive. Really, it is. So I love this. I hope that this line continues for a long time. I'm going to support it all I can. I'm going to buy directly through the Boss Fight store. Like I said, not a sponsored review. Didn't get the sample from them. Instead, I'm just telling you this on my own accord that I think that it's that good. So I really do think this is special. Quality control on the sword is a bummer. Overall, the sword is the only unpleasant part about this figure. There's just too much ornamentation going on the sword, and I feel like it would have served the function of the accessory better if they had just kept it simple. And I hope that that quality issue was only my sample, but if it's not, they could be looking at a slightly bigger problem from their factory, so maybe they want to be careful about those in the future. Now, this guy, I believe, was about $25 when I pre-ordered him. Might be $30 when you actually buy the in-stock product, because I think you get a slight discount if you pre-order. But since Boss Fight is a smaller company, and these were probably made in a little bit smaller quantity than what you would see with a mass retail line, I don't think that that's too bad, and I do feel like I got my money's worth with all the great accessories, with all the quality sculpting and paint work. I do feel like that this is a win for Zorro fans like myself. Of course, guys, don't forget that you do need to subscribe to the channel, and please like the video if you can. I'd really appreciate it. Those really help the channel and really helps us grow. Especially subscribing is one of the best things you can do to help the channel. Fanboys Forever is seeing a lot of growth, and we really need you to be a part of the team, especially if we want to give you looks at figures just as soon as they're released, like this one, so that we can keep you current and keep you notified of everything going on in the action figure world. Keep in mind, we have some other new types of videos coming down the pipeline, and we'll just see how people respond to those. And can't wait for you guys to see those later on in January. So happy early New Year to everybody, and thankful for you all watching. And as always, be safe out there. God bless you and yours, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever.